It's a spell. There's a reason why on film sets somebody else yells cut, not the
Ooh,
actors.
that's good. That's good.
There's a
Yes.
reason. That's
Yes.
by design.
What's good, everybody? Really excited about this conversation with John Michael Rouchell, Grammy Award winner. We talked all about New Orleans. We talked all about recording and bringing out the most vibe. It was a fascinating, incredible conversation that even took us to Disneyland. But before we get into it, I'd like to introduce our title sponsor, DistroKid. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists get to keep 100% of royalties and earnings. And today, you can sign up with our special 30% off code to get started. Go to distrokid.com/VIP/lovemusicmore, all one word, for 30% off and get your music out there today. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music onto Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all of the major streaming services. One of my favorite things that I like about it is I got a mobile app that I can check my royalties on the go. You can download that on iOS and Android today. Once again, our code distrokid.com/VIP/lovemusicmore. Enjoy the episode. What's good, everybody? I'm Scoobert Dubert. Welcome back to Love Music More. I am joined with Grammy Award-winning, platinum-selling producer, songwriter, composer, John Michael Rouchell. Well,
What's happening, Scoobert? Thank you for having me, brother. Grateful for you.
it's so good to be chatting. I'm so excited to dig into the unique musical history that is New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah, dude. Absolutely. The place I call home.
That is the coolest place to call home because I feel like so much of what we conceptualize as American music is very much rooted in that beautiful mixing pot, the place that so many different cultures came together and created music that is unlike anywhere else on the face of the earth.
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, it's a pretty strange and amazing thing to be able to, when people visit New Orleans, to be able to say, okay, do you see this park? It's now called Armstrong Park. At one time it was called Congo Square. And it's literally the place where American music was born, the first American art form, jazz, where you took the rhythms of the Caribbean and the rhythms of Africa, and you take sort of traditional, spiritual melodies, you put them on post-Civil War band instruments, snare drums, bass drums, sousaphones, trumpets, and people start improvising and trying to figure out how to live with each other. And that's that pluralism. It's a pretty beautiful thing to be able to say, look, it happened here, and to be from that place and be the wellspring of so much great music. It's a privilege.
It is, and that's incredible. And just even like looking back, I've got a drum kit behind me.
Hell
And
yeah.
that didn't start as a drum kit. That started
No,
as
sir.
individual marching instruments. Yes.
No, sir. That is a second half of the 20th. Well, I guess middle of the 20th century invention. But yeah, you'd see the cat with the big bass drum playing a cymbal on top, bass drum with his right hand, the snare drummer walking, because it was funeral processions, and like marching bands, to the military sense. And so taking those kind of things. Also, you had that fife and drum thing. Additionally, like, Haitian music and Cuban music and African music, kind of more the calfskin hand drum kind of thing. So yeah, it's a funny thing how, ingenuity and where we end up.
But then it ends up feeling like it's always been there. You see, like, oh yeah, drum kit, like normal instrument.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's not actually that normal. That's a combination of a bunch of different instruments that then people figured out how to play at the same time.
For sure. I mean, and it's a pretty wild concept when you think about it like that somebody's job was just to kind of play, just the and then someone's job was to play boom, 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 and then you put it all together,
Yes.
It's kind of a cool thing. Some New Orleans drummers really have that. I love my New Orleans musicians, especially New Orleans drummers. I'm biased, but they have this magical thing where they can sound like, multiple people at once, just through that, the understanding of the independence and all that kind of thing. It's just so visceral, whether it's my friend Alvin Ford Jr. or Terrence Higgins or any of those cats, man. They're so good at that. It's a beautiful thing.
That is a beautiful thing. And I think you're right to reference the Latin music as part of that with like the
100%.
clave, the pulse that like, you think about like that same idea on a clave player where they're just hitting two wooden sticks together, but they are in charge of the entire group. They are the conductor. They are the one that everyone's dancing to.
100%. I'm in the 3-2 clave, right? Da, 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 ba, ba. So three notes and then two notes. Da, 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 a ba, ba. Some people know it as the Bo Diddley beat.
Yep.
Obviously, George Michael's Faith, but that was a big thing, which all comes from the Caribbean, right? And by way of Africa. So, and, obviously, if you're coming to America, that's New Orleans was a major port city. So a lot of that that tradition, those traditions, those rhythms, that kind of patois, that rhythmic sense was all kind of just getting mixed up in that town.
Totally no. And I want to talk briefly because I don't get to talk to people that are as in it as you are about the so swing, right? The way that
Haha.
swing is conceptualized is you're tying the triplet. So there's a series of three notes, and you're going to tie the last two together, and there you go, you're swinging. New Orleans swing can be very different. How does that taught? How is it like? Is it in the water? Is it in the vibe? Like
Ha.
how are people thinking about swing? Like coming from that musical tradition rather than studying the musical tradition.
For sure. I mean, well, every Saturday or Sunday, you have second line processionals, right? Where you're hearing whether it's, celebrating someone's life who just passed away or just celebrating the fact that we made it through another week,
Hmm.
So you hear those rhythms, those clave rhythms, all those kind of things. Before talking about swing, I think it's important to talk about where we put the emphasis of sort of, most in American popular music, the two and the four are sort of the big beats that get emphasis, or big one, right? In funk music, bum, dum, dum, the big one, right? In
Yeah.
New Orleans music, we put emphasis on the and after four. So one and two and three and four and so it's this constantly feeling like you constantly feel like the beat is turning over and like you
Mm,
kind of never it's like kind of this endless hypnotic thing, right? And then
yeah.
yeah, swing, man, it's a part of how we live. I mean, like it's in New Orleans. I'm in Los Angeles right now, but like back home, it's humid as hell. It's hot, it's sweaty. So people kind of talk a little slower and all those kind of things. So when you displace those eight notes, we like a little bit of, you know what I mean? Playing behind the
Yes.
beat. We like kind of displacing things a little bit just to make it feel, because I think it's just natural to the environment. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I
I
think it's
get it.
natural to the space that you're living in. Just the same way that like if you're going to a beach in California, certain things feel a certain way and
Yep.
surf music sounds that kind of way. You know what I mean? Like I think it's a
Yes.
reflection of your existence as a human, which is,
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Well, it's like how like Coltrane sounds so New York, or
Hell yeah.
it's just like that uptown energy. It's like
Yeah.
it's about to like rip through the speakers in a totally different way than New Orleans music, or like a Snoop Dogg or something, where it
Yeah.
just it. Hey man,
Those
that
Dr.
feels like
Dre records feel
yes,
so California to me,
yes,
right? Like
yes.
that Bay sound, like whether it's the hyphy stuff or the Dre
Mm-hmm.
stuff or all
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things, like it couldn't be, because you have this car culture, right? In
Yep.
California,
Yep.
you think about like all those kind of lowriders, like that kind of music, you get all that kind of stuff, you get the funk of the 70s and 80s, right? And so all that stuff's happening and that gets into everything, man. I
Yeah.
mean, like we all grew up listening to meter records. The crazy thing
Yes.
too
Totally.
was is when I was young, like, I was born in 85. So like I'm coming of age in the 90s. And it would, we would go to like sock hops or whatever, like these kind of little things that, you do when you're like 10, 12 years old. And this was like the last gasp of regional hits.
Okay.
Like we
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
bounce records and like hip hop, like our indigenous music. Miami has like Miami bass. The Bay has like hyphy stuff. Different people have different things. Drill in Chicago.
Yep.
Like we had bounce music or have bounce music, right? And so we had a lot of stuff that felt like I thought they were hits all across America. And then when I moved to New York, I was like, oh yeah, like y'all know DJ Jubilee and all these things. They were like, what? And so it's kind of, that was like, I think it's important to remember that like music is to be played and to exist within the confines of where it is being created.
Yeah.
Now, we're sitting here talking over Zoom.
Right.
And so a lot of music now feels like it is being created within the context of the internet.
Yes,
right?
Right.
And so I think it's really important for us to think about that idea. Like, what is the set and setting? To use a Ken Kesey kind of a little bit more of a drug reference, but you know, that kind of idea of like, who's making this? Where are they from? Where are they currently making it? How does that all get into the music? You know what I mean? And like, have the music be a reflection of the place and space that it's being created in, you know?
Yes. And the venue that it's ultimately like being made for.
David Byrne's How Music Works, my dude.
Man. It's a good
You read
book.
that book?
I read
Well
that
done.
book.
Well done.
You know, create a little creative borrowing.
Yeah, no, look, I'm a thief, man. So like, yeah. No, for those that don't know, I thoroughly recommend David Byrne, the singer of the Talking Heads, wrote this incredible book called How Music Works. And the basic premise of the book is instead of thinking about the artist as this tortured soul sort of looking up into the stars from the gutter and, you know, crying out his plea, right? It's much more of an idea that his theory is instead of that, artists analyze their environment first and then create. You know, the New Orleans example that he uses is like Wynton Marsalis plays jazz, the Rebirth Brass Band play jazz, but because Wynton Marsalis spends his time in Lincoln Center where it's like very reverberant, he's going to play like longer notes, legato stuff, right? Whereas Rebirth is playing in the Maple Leaf bar, which is like almost like a CBGB's, tiny little club, right?
Yeah.
So it's much more up-tempo, a lot more notes, a lot more aggressive. Anyway, for those listening at home, I thoroughly recommend that should be on number one on your music book reading list. It's an incredible book.
I agree. And it very much like kind of inspired why I'm even doing this podcast, because it was that moment of like, there's more. There are more of those little aha things that just don't get talked about in music because we don't really spend the time. We're too busy working or practicing or trying to get the next gig or whatever. Just having that moment, that hour-long conversation with somebody that's doing it. I feel like you can discover so many more of those little things, just like I feel like I already
100%.
have. This
Oh man, cool.
awesome.
I'm having fun, Scooter. This
Good.
is a vibe, bro.
I'm glad. I hope the listeners are too. So I want to speak on Tiana's Bayou adventure now, because taking all of this energy, this lifetime of learning, and then now you have the client of frickin' Disneyland, where it's not a new ride, it is a reimagining and an elevation of a ride that has existed for 30 years in Splash Mountain. And so I feel like that's a lot of pressure of you are trying to tell an authentic musical story and invite people that from all around the world are going to experience this ride and then therefore experience New Orleans style music. And also satisfy the people that, you know, have been going on Splash Mountain for 30 years. How did that feel? How did you get that contract? Like, take me to the very beginning, that before you even write a single note.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, there wasn't much writing to begin with.
Okay, cool.
First, credit where credit's due.
Yes.
I was brought onto that project by Terrence Blanchard, the Oscar-nominated composer, Grammy winner, unbelievable, the maestro. So when I had sort of a strange way of getting into Terrence's world. I at one point was going to leave entertainment. I went and got my MBA because I was like so fried. I had like one of those moments where I was like, God, if I do another 3 a.m. hip hop session or, you know, another writing session with a 17-year-old TikToker who doesn't know who they are, so if you don't know who you are, I can't get you to the speakers kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so coming out of the MBA, I was like, I'm ready to leave the pirate ship. And everybody's like, you're a pirate. Go back to the pirate ship. And so the first person I called was, one of the first people I called was Robin Burgess, Terrence's partner and wife and manager. And I just said, look, you know, I'm going to come back to entertainment, but I got to do this differently. You guys have conquered film music and music for media and all those kind of things and whatever I can do, you know? And so they were awesome and they were very welcoming. we spent a good bit of time where I was earning their trust in a lot of ways. So all credit to them for bringing me on. Without them, I'm not involved in that project. That said, that project was uh, it was daunting, okay? Because to your point, everybody knows Splash Mountain, man. Everybody loves Splash Mountain. Everybody has their opinion about Splash Mountain. And generally speaking, people don't like change,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like change is usually uncomfortable, right? And so it's kind of starts there. And then, what was so nice though was to meet John Dennis, who's an incredible creative executive over at Imagineering at Disney. And, basically to say like, look, I'm at your service. You are our client, whatever I can do to delight you, et cetera. And his whole thing was, he was so brave and cool. And he was just like, look, we've hired you guys because y'all know the real stuff and like the magic of this. Yeah. And he's like, I'll tell you when you're out of bounds. Ooh. Which was like the best thing on planet Earth to hear, right? And so the goal of it was like, all right, we have like tunes from the film, Princess and the Frog, right? Of which Terrence played all the trumpet parts for Louis, right? The alligator kind of thing. And so we had some of these Randy Newman tunes. And then we went and found a bunch of, like I had to do a lot of digging, Terrence did a lot of digging of like old public domain traditional jazz music from like the 20s.
How'd you go about that?
30s.
How'd you go about that? Library of
Man,
Congress stuff?
just,
How
yeah. I mean, life of the author plus 70 years, right? Yeah. Seeing the circle and then kind of going back and going, okay, like, do we want to do Basin Street Blues? Do we want to do, all these kind of tunes? And fortunately, I mean, a lot of that music is now in the public domain. And additionally, like, kind of ripe to be told again, right?
Yeah,
to have a new spin being told on it. Terrence was such a brilliant, like, to me, he was like directing the film in a lot of ways, right? Like, he would say, say something like, hey, man, Dirty Dozen Brass Band, the Meters song, They All Ask for You, which is also a Cole Porter melody, which I think why it works so well. And I was like, Dirty Dozen doing them. And then sure enough, it was like, oh, this is absolute like it was just one of those weeks where like everybody really kind of bought into the vision of this thing. We all kind of realized that this was an opportunity to be stewards, not only for our city, but like for a tradition that's been going on. Additionally, to make something deeply important. My daughter is 7 years old, and to be able to do that for her and for all, and to do this for a property which is the first African American princess, I think is really important. Yeah. And so it was, it was very much a dutiful and like it was a lot of pressure. Yes. But that said, once we got into the studio, I think everybody kind of felt that gravity and like it was fun, man. Like we had a freaking blast. It was like I think people really, really met the moment. And so like, it was a lot of work to get there. And it was great. It was great to speak to people like, Uncle Charlie from Preservation Hall, like he was alive back in the day and he was like, oh man, no, we're not doing that song. And I was like, oh, why? He's like, nope. He's like, that doesn't reflect the thing. So there was so much like great, like Disney has this like brand to, protect. There's this, the ride, all these kind of things. Additionally, to get constantly these conversations amongst musicians with the authenticity of like, yeah, but that has it's got a meaning you don't actually want. You know what I mean? Or like, and so there was just this meeting it was beautiful, man. But
so what was the recording process like?
It was in 2 or 3 chunks. And I think they were about a week each, and like the first week was great, man. I mean, it was like the best of the best players, and Terrence. The coolest part for me and, for Greg Hayes, who's been in Terrence's world, incredible engineer and mixer, he's doing all kind of film scores and all these, like I just took my daughter to go see Lilo and Stitch. And of course, Greg recorded and mixed it. Like Greg's a monster.
Oh, cool.
But like for Greg, who's like been with T for a while, like we've never heard T play that like old Louis Armstrong stuff, like that pop stuff, because T's like constantly living in the future. Yeah. He's like, all right, cool. Where can we take this? We're here today. Where can we take this for tomorrow?
Yes.
Where can we continue this legacy? Like he's much more in the legacy of like, I mean, it's all goes back to New Orleans, et cetera. But I think he thinks of himself in that legacy of, Miles, Herbie. He plays with Herbie, like pushing jazz forward. And
Right.
so to be able to hear him playing that stuff, man, I was like a little kid, man.
Ah,
I'd never heard that stuff before, man. So that was like
yeah.
to hear him play Basin Street Blues or to hear him play, we did like a version of Little Liza Jane where he's like just taking solos on the end. Like, oh man, it was crazy. It was crazy. And then we had a bunch of different things. We did, there was a Haitian group which did like rah-rah music, which I had no idea what rah-rah music was.
I don't know.
And
I don't think I'm familiar either.
yeah, it was cool. And so like John Dennis from Disney was like, yeah, man, here, you got to learn about Haitian rah-rah music. I'm like, okay.
I guess I do too. Yeah,
cool.
hell yeah.
I'm in the band now,
I've got some big news, everybody. My vinyl record is out. We didn't make a ton of these, so these guys are going to sell out, and I would love for you to get your hands on one of them because they're so dope. They're so dope. And it comes with a whole bunch of like liner notes and pictures and special stuff, the things that really went into making this record. And I want you to get your hands on it. So go to scoobertdubert.pizza or check out my Instagram for a link or click the link in the show notes or the bio or wherever you're watching this to pick up your copy. They're going to sell out. We really did not make very many of these. And I want you to have it. It's like a collector's item. So thank you. Thank you for supporting my music. And I can't wait for you to hear it actually on physical vinyl. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
And so learning about that was incredible. And additionally, like the crazy thing about Imagineering and those rides, if you've ever been, I'm sure you've had this experience where you've been to a music festival and you're looking at one stage, but you can hear another stage.
Yeah.
And that's like, entertainment death, right? Like it's like such a buzzkill. And so they've got to think about that on each of these rides. And so like the stuff, so there was like the cue line music, which was like going to play like a radio play. So we didn't have to worry about any of that stuff. But then the things in the ride all had to be able to play at the same time and talk to each other rhythmically, as well as key changes, like all these things. It was like, and so it became this really weird math problem.
Yeah.
But, now that I've gone through it once, I feel like I'm like, now I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But so it was just really interesting, unlike anything I've ever done before. And all credit to John Dennis and the Disney squad, Robin, all of them, Sharita, Carmen. They were so Ted. They were all so warm and so just partners. You know what I mean? Like everybody was getting in the boat and rowing. There was no like, we are, Disney, you are we were hanging, man. Additionally, it was August in New Orleans, man. It's hot as hell.
Perfect.
So it was like, we were getting sweaty. We were, you know what I mean? We were in there, bro. Like we were in there. There was no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
visceral, human.
Visceral, boy. And the AC went out like on the third or fourth day in the studio.
Of course it did.
It was like, hell yeah, dude, let's go. You know what I mean? Like,
this is meant to be.
Absolutely.
We're not supposed to be comfortable. Yes.
Man, this is, we're gonna make it feel real by hook or by crook. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Anyway.
That is kind of a crazy thing to do, to make music for a ride. By nature, you can't experience it. You have to just like lean on other people's expertise and do your best. But it also does make sense that once you can feel it in the venue, it's like mixing music for a movie theater.
Yeah.
It's like, I'd really like to hear it in the movie theater while I'm mixing, or at least get like a dry run. I don't want to just send it off and be like, hope it sounds good, which I've had to do before.
Yeah, there's a woman named Robin who's an incredible audio engineer. And she, she really was the person who could explain to us like, okay, because, it's like this particular, 1,000-point speaker system.
Wow.
Like 1,000-point, not, people have 5.1 systems, like 1,000.1, or however many sub things. And she was like, no, each thing has to be able to be isolatable and stemmable, right? So there's no mixing really. Wow. The mixing happens when we deliver it. And so it was so funny, man. There was we had this one brass band and I could see Robin was about to have, this was like on day 3 of the first week. And Robin looked like, because, from an audio bleed standpoint, These are all dudes in the congregation of a church, right? Big room, horns, drums. I mean, the most, everything's getting into everything. And I see Robin across the thing. But this was also like we were kind of protecting each other, I could see Robin kind of freaking out. And so I pulled Greg Hayes aside. I'm like, bro, Robin is gonna trip. And she's gonna want all these, all the brass band dudes to be in ISO booths. But if we do that, we're gonna lose the feeling. And these dudes don't, they don't play like that. These people, and so like
Yep.
we have to figure out a way. And Greg, of course, was so awesome. He was like, no, listen to how much isolation we have. I was like, okay, can we show her so that
Yeah.
she calms
Yeah.
down? You know what I mean?
Smart,
And so we
smart,
were
smart.
all like very much just taking care of each other. And I think that was just like, once again, that dutiful feeling of like everybody like, all right, this is an incredible opportunity. Like, let's make sure that everybody who's, and this is a credit to John and Terrence, like everybody who got on board with this thing was like completely bought in and completely looking out for the next person. And to the point of like New Orleans music, like people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different instruments, different things working together in a pluralistic idea towards a common goal, it really is an exemplary thing of what not only what New Orleans is, but what like American ingenuity and what I think Disney is too. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of a beautiful, and to be a part of that was just absolute magic, for lack of a better term.
That's a really important thing, I think, for a lot of people to hear and feel is that the parts of American culture that you can feel, that you can experience, that is, like, again, visceral, ground level people.
Yeah.
Americans are awesome. I don't know. I think that it's a tough time to say that, but I think that as a people, this is a cool place. We make a lot of cool things.
Hell yeah. And I mean, I think, look, man, when we get in a room,
Yeah.
and when we can like all make something together, whether it's like a meal or music
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
it's funny how all that other stuff kind of falls away, man. We have the technological convenience
Hmm.
to live this very isolated life,
Yeah.
but if anything, growing up in New Orleans has taught me, and music in general, man, like, you know what I mean? Getting in rooms with people from different cultures, different backgrounds is everything, man. It taught me everything about what it is to be a human, So it's like love music more, man. Love people more, man. You know what I'm saying? Like get in rooms, man. Like collaborate. Like, yes, we do have the power to completely produce, mix, master, record music by yourself. And like, look, if you're Prince, like God bless. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like if
Yeah.
you could do that, like that's
Uh-huh.
awesome.
Yeah.
But like for most of us, man, the magic is in between the spaces,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
middle of the room, man.
Yeah.
And so like that ride was such a and that project was such a beautiful, led by Terrence and led by John Dennis, and like that, the magic is among us,
Mm.
not, not over here or over there. You know what I mean?
I think that might be a place that music ends up circling back to. There
I
there
hope so.
there's murmurs,
I hope
but
so. I mean, look, man, at the end of the day, like even before, recorded music, the thing that we're talking about is 100-year-old medium,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But even before that, in ancient Greek times, we were getting together, drinking ambrosia, listening to lutes, and trying to procreate. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep.
Like getting high, dancing, and having a good time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yes.
like that's the thing I just hope. That's the rebellion of the moment that I hope happens is like people getting in spaces and I saw,
Mhm.
man, did you see, that band Turnstile? You know
Yeah. I
Turnstile?
know Turnstile. Yeah.
Man, seeing that
Yep.
that thing that they did in Baltimore, man, where people jump, like that was the most inspiring thing I've seen in a year.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I was like, this is sick. I mean, granted, I'm a 90s baby, so like seeing like circle pits and people jumping off a stage and all that shit was like that was incredible to me. But like, I was like, look at this. It's
Mm.
people in a
Mm.
space. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that
Yes.
felt so invigorating, man.
Mm.
Coming off of the last, the COVID stuff and all these kind of
Yeah.
things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was so refreshing, man.
Yeah. I want to circle back to something you said about the recording studio or the recording experience of they don't play like that. 'Cause I think
Oh,
that's a good because I have seen that so many times, especially in really young musicians' careers, where say that they, play as a band or they are
Mhm.
playing dive bars or whatever, and then all of a sudden, no, we're going track by track. You're playing to a click. You're in an unfamiliar environment.
I'm shaking my head because that drives me absolutely crazy.
Hmm.
Look, as a fellow like person who engineers records, produces records, tech geek, we could talk plugins, we could talk compression, whatever you want to do. We can do all of it. We could talk about the magic of 800 hertz and an electric bass, right? Or whatever you want to do. Like I,
Bookmarked.
yeah, you know what I mean, or whatever. Like you know what I mean. We could do this for all of it, but like it drives me absolutely crazy when technicians take over how art is made. Like so much of what I do as a producer, man, is like trying to get people to make music the way that they make music and capture it, right? It's like to me the job is not to songs mixed, done. No, the job is to capture magic, man. And so it's like, my friend Jameson Ross, like I got to, I had the privilege of producing his record. And then shortly after, his record, we had a song that went top 20 US R&B, number one on the UK soul charts. Like it did really great. It was the number one US indie R&B song. Did awesome. And then we basically quickly went and worked on Avery Sunshine's record, which we won the Grammy for Best Progressive R&B. But like with Jameson, he's a drummer and a singer, right? And so like he was like, yeah, man, like of course he's a talented dude. He got signed to Concord, which, talented people go on jazz labels, that's what they do. And then they make you sing standards or like sit
Yeah.
down at a piano to write. I'm like, why are we doing that? That's ridiculous. You're like a soulful dude who grew up in church, who grew up in Florida. Like, play something, man. Like, get a groove going, and then let's write on top of that. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, you can do that? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, bend the world to you. And so it's like, in that moment, I had enough empathy to say, okay, this brass band, if we isolate them in sort of ISO booths,
Yep.
Robin, the technician, will get everything she wants, but we'll lose the magic. How do we make sure that we can make a win-win for both things, right? Because ultimately, it's like if it's all tech, no one's gonna care. Then
Yeah.
like everybody's like, yeah, we did our job, but
Yeah.
like who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think so much of what I try to do as a producer and as a songwriter and just as a creative is like start with you, start with the thing, start with the artist. Like how do you operate? Like if you're a violinist, why are you picking up a guitar to write? You know what I mean? If you're a keyboard player, why, or that was another thing. Someone was like, yeah, I need to learn how to program or this, that, and the third. And I'm a singer. I'm like, man, there are plugins that can turn your vocal into MIDI.
Yeah.
Sing the parts.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
bend the world to you. And so
Totally.
like, I think, because that's just where I think the magic is, man.
I also think that speaks volumes in terms of when people want to make their own music, they often don't know to what degree they need to do that. Like for example, with the singer, like just get out all of the ideas that you have and nothing more. And then
100%.
hire somebody that can fill in those gaps or collaborate with somebody or start a band or something. That's what other people are there for. You don't have to take on the entire world all at once. But at the same time, you don't have to hold yourself back and not input your ideas if like even
Yeah.
if they're crude, even if they're rough, some of the coolest like drum parts, some of the coolest guitar parts come from people that don't actually play those instruments. They just
Hell
have a
yeah.
vision.
Like no modern drummer magazine is ever gonna say like Stevie Wonder is the coldest drummer of all. Man, Stevie Wonder is one of the coldest drummers of all time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but it's because of those limitations. It's because of that
Mm.
specificity. So like, I feel it both ways. It's like,
Yep.
yeah, like if you need a killing guitar part and you're not a killing guitar player, there's plenty of people who can do that. And
Yep.
let's get them in the room and make the magic in the middle of it. If the goal of what we're trying to do for recording is like this really intimate portrait of like the flaws and all those kind of things, because that's where we feel like this thing's really gonna vibrate. Like, it's great that you can't play guitar. Like that's gonna be sick. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
so I kind of think of it like that. It's like, what are we actually trying to do? Because I know at the end of the day, like when we make a recording, right, we can either focus on the process of making it and try to make that as good as possible, or we could focus on the outcome. And unfortunately, if we focus on the outcome, we aren't going to be able to be in everybody's room when they hit play and say, "Ooh, but the bass player, No, it's either like it is or it ain't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so much of what I'm trying to do in my creative life is make sure that like we're getting the thing to communicate what it is that we're trying to communicate as best as possible. Because once it's there, whether someone likes it or not, that's out of my control. You know what I mean? But like, as long as we know that we're getting to the goal and the magic is getting to the speakers, that's all we can do, man.
I also think that musicians, especially when you've been working on a record for a long time, you think and listen very zoomed in. And most people, when they listen to a record, it just smacks them like a wave at the beach. It's unexpected.
Man, I talk about this all the time. Like, do you know what percentage of Motown's of those like early Motown records, what percentage of those vocals were the demo?
Oh no, that's a good. That I see where you're going though, but I do not know.
70%, 70%.
Wow.
Okay. So like it drives me crazy. Like in the best of ways. I love my singers, right? I love my musicians. But like if we don't get something within 5 to 8 takes, you either don't know the song, right?
Yep.
Or you're unprepared or something's off and let's just come back to it.
Yeah.
Cuz like I just don't think, I mean, granted, there's obvious examples to the contrary, right? Like Charlie Chaplin with his films, like doing 1,000 takes. He's very looking for this specific thing, you know, the David Fincher, like I need this drop of water to hit which is great. That's well and good. But for me, with regard to music, I think that there's this one little moment that happens where like someone's learning a song, they're learning a song, their analytical mind hasn't quite taken over. They've learned the song. Their analytical mind isn't on. That's usually where it happens.
Yeah.
And then their analytical mind takes over and then the magic's zapped.
Yep.
And like, this has happened to me 20 plus times in my life where incredible singers, you know, take 3, take 4. I'm like, cool, I got everything I need. Sing it a couple more times, but whatever. And they kind of look at me like I'm an asshole. Like, oh, he's trying to just, you know, get me out of the studio to save money on studio time. They'll do like 10 more takes and they'll feel good, right?
Yeah.
Like in their body, take 15 feels good in their body. But what's weird is the chamber of your body and the chamber of the speakers are 2 different things, man.
Yes.
And they'll come in and they'll be like, yeah, take 15, let me hear that. And they're like, oh. And usually in that moment, because they want to please people, they'll say, oh, well, let me do 5 more takes, right? As opposed to having someone there that was like, oh, I got the goosebumps on take 4. Like, go back and listen to take 4. And usually what happens is they listen to it and they say, oh, if I just punch this.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we already have that from take 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
There's this unconscious thing that like, I think we're all, like, at least for me, and my favorite records all have is this kind of moment of discovery.
Yeah. Yes.
And if you can capture that on tape, that's that's the magic, man.
I agree. I try to not demo for a lot of things for that very reason.
Demoitis is real,
Demoitis
boy.
is so real. And so it's like, might as well write the part and record the part at the same time. And there it is. And it's done. And you're right. It's right at that point of like, ooh, I did something I didn't expect, or the phrasing was slightly different than if I thought about it or whatever. And that's the part that's going to go on the record because it moves me. It takes you somewhere. Yeah. On listen back, it elevates way above the one that's highly technical or whatever.
And here's the secret, dude. Yeah. That's someone revealing themselves.
Yeah.
And really at the end of the day, what people want is to say, because your job as a musician really is to hold up a mirror to the world and say, do you see yourself in this, right? And you're supposed to be that mirror, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's the scary thing for most musicians, because they want to hide behind technique. They want to hide behind all those things. That's armor.
And it's also really scary to do that in front of other people, like the wrong producer or in the wrong situation or whatever. Yeah.
But that's what we're all looking for, man.
Sorry to interrupt this very important broadcast, but it's time for one more advertisement for myself for this podcast. What I'm asking for is for you to rate it 5 stars, share it with your friends. This is like the most important thing for this podcast to grow. So if you want to do this, you go onto the podcast screen, right? You click on the ... on Spotify. Under there, it says rate show, and you go and you click it. 5 stars. If you could do that for me, that's the best way for the algorithms and all that stuff to share it out with the world. I know that it's a lot to ask, but if you could please just hit those 3 dots and then a 5 star, it would really help us out and helps us, get the word out and spread the love of music. So thank you. If you're listening on YouTube, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you so much. And here's the rest of the episode.
That's what we all want.
And one thing that I've had happen to me a few times, and I try really hard to either coach up the vocalists that I've worked with or try to do this myself, as often as possible, don't stop the take halfway through just because you weren't quite feeling it.
Never. Oh my God.
It's so
There's
frustrating.
so many good things that get lost to, oh, sorry. You know what I mean?
No, keep going. What are you doing?
Yeah, man. It's a spell. Yeah. It's a spell. There's a reason why on film sets, somebody else yells cut, not the actor.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. Yes.
There's a reason. Yes. That's by design. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, that's not their job. It's not their job to pick takes. You know what I mean? Because I don't think most people know really what they are or how they make people feel.
Yeah.
And, I know that, because I came up producing and stuff, I was sort of, towards the end of the sort of 20th century production thing, right? Where you, really learn the stuff, you go in the studio, you play, right? And, I had to learn how to program, learn how to do all those things along the way because that was just happening. Mm-hmm. But, to me, I just think that there's something so beautiful about objectivity. And I know that that's become an antiquated thing. Oh, these producers, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, don't you want to have someone who's your first audience member tell you whether the audience is going to like it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And if you can really trust someone in that moment and really build that trust, that's when good things happen, man. It's when someone's all right, cool, let's go. Yep. I'll be wide open. If you think it's great, you know what I mean? That, totally. I don't know. I come from that school. So yeah, I cannot stand when people, oh, I'm sorry. No. We were all, yeah, keep going. Yeah.
And the point that I want to jump off on that and make is that it doesn't have to necessarily be a traditional player, producer, mix engineer, or whatever. I have 3. It's Sam, the guy that we were talking about before.
Yeah. Sweetheart.
I have Riley, who is my mastering engineer, and then I have Grizz, who does my album art. Any of those 3 people can tell me this sucks or and if any of the 3 do, I don't release it. And each of them has probably done 1 or 2 songs out of the hundreds that I've made, So it's not a ton, but they perfectly, they are my bar. And if it doesn't meet that bar, it's all right, that's fine. I trust you. I know that. Yeah.
Man, it's important. I mean, in this world, you think about the art world, right? And you think about gallerists. If I told, basically here's the business model of painter and gallerist. It's 50-50 when a painting sells. Now, for us in the music industry, we're whoa, that's a big percentage, right? But it's but part of the job of those gallerists is to say this is what's gonna sell. This is what's gonna work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's
right.
Incredibly important. Yeah. And so having been on both sides of it, having been a performer and songwriter and all those kind of things, and this goes to that thing, to your point of objective thing. I'm so glad you have your village of people. For me as an artist, when back in the day, I would sit up at night thinking, wishing, hoping, praying that someone would walk through the door to be that objective voice for me. Never really got my person, And then it took me so much I spent so much time thinking about what I would want them to be, what I would want them to say, what I would want them to do, what I would want them to think about, what I would want them to value, that that negative space became a 3-dimensional object, and I just filled it. I just became that for other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so to me, I know that everybody's looking for the game-changing secret sauce plug-in that's gonna da-da-da-da-da. Man, to me, it's about people, man. It's about community. It's about trust. It's about collaboration. It's about getting together and making stuff and sweating on each other and making mistakes and, doing rad shit, you know, um, more than
Growing
it's about like some, you know, TikTok reel or something. You know what I mean?
and growing together. Because
Hell yeah, dude.
everybody wants somebody higher on the ladder to like reach their hand down and pull them up, and sometimes that does happen. But I don't know. It's fun climbing the ladder with other people, and then because then you look over and you see them on the ladder next to you, and you go like, "Man, like look how far we came. We both kind of did that together."
150%.
Like the guy that does my illustrations. Like I have loved watching how his artistry and his arc and his vocabulary as he doesn't just work with me, and that makes me really happy because I'm watching his career grow and spread and
Hmm.
widen, and we've made so much together over like 5 years now, and that's cool,
Beautiful.
man. Like even people in their day jobs, like they leave companies like every 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my friends, so they just kind of lack this experience of creating something with the team, with people, growing together, changing and challenging. When I reflect on success, and like, yeah, I don't have a lot of money from music or whatever, but it is success. A big part of that success too is just that feeling of growing together, growing as community, growing as a team, a unit, collaborators, all that.
150%, man. It's a communal art form. It just
Yeah.
is, man. And
Yep.
like, you know, I don't know whether it's the end of the empire or whatever, but we're in a very selfish time,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think like the thing that's going to break us through, like,
Hmm.
I- scenes were important at one time, and like bands playing in the same city and like kind of growing together, all that kind of stuff. That
Yes.
was important,
Yes.
man. And
Yeah.
you could create sort of the primary color facsimile of that in different ways, right? Whether it's to your point, like that kind of almost creative agency setup,
Yeah.
like that where everybody's kind of got a different role and we're all growing together kind of thing. Or whether it's different people competing against each other or different people within a band competing with
Hmm.
each other. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Lennon and
Yes.
McCartney kind of vibe. I
Yes.
think that stuff is so important, man. I personally don't love the selfishness of the
Yeah.
modern era,
Yeah.
but I understand that that is what it is. I get it, it's a part of it. But um, unfortunately, I think we do a lot of masking of how much the thing you see is just the tip of the spear as opposed to the whole enchilada. I like systems. I like people. I like all those things.
Did your mindset change at all post MBA? Did that change you?
Yeah, 110%. I got a dual concentrated MBA in strategy and data analytics. I finished number one in my class at Tulane University. I'm a nerd, man. Like I'm a compulsive, competitive nerd. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, I live every day with Dr. Sharif Ebrahim's goals, metrics, methods, resources in that order, the most important part in that order. Like really understand what a goal is and how to kind of get all people rowing towards that same goal. As a producer and as a person who works, whether you're composing for a film, man, you're the head of a department.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
a leader more than you are a person. I mean, yes, you were writing iconic melodies, you were doing all those things, you're arranging them, you're doing all those things. But really, the reason why I wanted to go apprentice and study with Terrence Blanchard was because I knew he was a leader, and I wanted to see how he led, and he was gracious enough and kind enough because, he came up under Art Blakey and those people who were great mentors, the great musicians, and he understands the power of mentorship. He was like incredible to me to watch someone lead. And I knew coming out of the NBA that like I needed to see someone who was a true leader, in music. Few things are more leaderly than, conducting 100 some odd piece orchestra. Yeah, the idea of a goal, how to measure it, really understanding metrics. The funny thing is with that goals, metrics, methods, resources in that order thing, I started realizing how many people change their goals because of their resources.
Mm.
Oh, we don't have the money.
Yep.
Oh, we don't have the this. Oh, we don't have the that. Maybe we should change our goal. Like, that's the dumbest thing you can do on planet Earth. And I saw millions of people do it. I have more arguments with people about how to record, and they will change their goal based upon their methodologies of how to go about something, which is equally as foolish. And so it was very much like a honing of how I think, and just like kind of created mental models in my brain that I thought they were all stars in my proverbial sky, but it sort of made a constellation, if that makes any sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Goal setting is it's a fascinating thing because I think a lot of people focus their goal on I want to make this record to get a record label, or I want to make this record to get a
Yeah.
Spotify playlist, or to grow my career. What kind of goals? Just some examples, just to seed maybe somebody's brainstorm. Would you throw out there for somebody that's listening? Say that they're like a 17-year-old, they're artist, and they're trying to
Sure.
figure out where do they go? How do they start building their constellation?
Well, that's a great question. The MBA side of me says, like, okay, goals have to be, quote, smart, specific, measurable, achievable, uh, oh
Realistic,
God,
realistic.
realistic and time based. Right, exactly. Otherwise, it's a dream,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so that's that side of me. The other side of me is like, as a creative, there was something that I read afterwards. Like, I'm a real big film nut, right? And Alfred Hitchcock talked about that. Someone said, "How do you start working on a film?" He said, "Well, I think about the conversation that I want a couple to have after they're leaving the film I'm about to make. And then I figure out what I want them to say. And then I make the movie make them say that." And so, like, think about how powerful that is. What is that couple like as people? How do you want to affect them? All those kind of things, to where you're designing towards an end before, I think a lot of
Yeah,
people just create to create. And I
yeah,
think that's great,
yeah.
right? That's wonderful. And like, I, I don't, I don't
See, I
disparage anybody
but
doing
and I
that,
I think
but
that's easier to do on a smaller scale. When you're talking like an album, we're talking about a movie score or something like larger. I feel like that's when you need that scaffolding of goals even more.
100%. 100%, man. I mean, like, for example, with Jameson's record, like the one that, we had some Billboard success with, the conversations were, okay, you know, I've been signed to a jazz label. uh, the predominant my audience has been predominantly older white folks. You know what I mean? And like, any young black male is gonna want to speak to his own people. I mean, like, that makes sense to me. And so I'm like, okay, well, cool. If we're gonna make this soul thing, that's great. We need a song that's gonna be able to go to radio, right? And so, like, fortunately, but my craft, like, we've all, like, Alvin Ford Jr. was working on that stuff. All of us, like, we've all had different experiences and things towards having those kind of successes and designs and those kind of things. But because we were like, okay, we're fortunate in New Orleans, we have Essence Fest every July 4th, right? And like, it's a predominantly African American, predominantly female, it skews female, right? Which is, in entertainment, we always want to kind of skew female because you get the women to show it, blah, blah, blah. I know that's a little bit millennial and boomer of me to say, but like, whatever, it still applies. Um, and those audiences love hits, man. They want to sing along,
Yep.
And
Yep.
so much of the goal is like, okay, we need to make some songs that, like, are authentic to you.
Hmm.
It's authentic soul music. It's organic. It's real. But like, people got to be able to sing along,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think when the stakes are low and you're sitting there with a laptop and the only resource you're really expending is time, it's completely fine to just create, But when you have budgets and you only have a certain amount of money for recording and a certain amount of money for marketing, and like, to your point, the scaffolding, higher stakes, tightrope, all that kind of, the higher sort of risk involved. I think you got to kind of start thinking about those things. And for me personally, I love that shit, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
The higher the stakes, the better, man. I love it. It's like a drug for me, because I just love to be able to figure out how to solve it. Because here's the truth: you're never going to have enough resources. You're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have enough time. You're never going to have enough talent. You're never going to have what you need to get there. And the fun part is just figuring out how to still get there. It's a problem solving exercise for me. Jameson was not on a jazz label, he was doing it independently, and we got him on the bill, like, on radio. So it's like, how do we do this? And it was, our realistic goal setting was like, okay, if we get top 20 in R&B radio, like, we're stoked. Because once you get in the top 20, you bump into Beyonce, Bruno Mars, all the, like, we're
Yeah.
not beating them.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
ridiculous.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, we're not delusional.
Yes.
But like, to land a punch on those people from nothing, from literally my guest bedroom, you know,
Yes. Yes.
is
Right.
sick. That's fun.
That is fun.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
that's a drug that I'll be chasing for the rest of my life.
Totally. I absolutely get it. I mean, my limited experiences have been getting in like New Music Friday, where
Hell yeah.
like my first time I was like the second to last, and my
That's
second time I
great.
was like top 25,
Look,
and it was
man, 100,000 songs come out every single day on DSPs. Okay.
crazy.
How many songs are on New Music Friday?
100.
Okay. So you are in the top 1% of music,
For
or
that
no,
week.
not even less, because you got 7 days within that week, right? So you're in the top 0.01 or whatever. I don't know. I can't do the math. I don't have a calculator. But like, think about that, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
But like, it's achievable.
Yeah, it is.
It's doable. You did it. We're sitting here on this podcast talking about it, right? Like,
my first song I did it I didn't have a desk. I did it I mixed it in headphones, and
hell
my
yeah.
laptop was on my dresser, and my SM7 was on like a little desktop mic stand, and yeah.
Bro, I had to mix an episode of music for Terrence for this TV show thing from a hotel bedroom in New York about an hour before I had to go do a
Oh,
vocal session with Anne Hathaway for this upcoming A24 movie. Like, you never have enough time, you never have enough
yes.
resources, you never have enough budget. It's never like, man, that's what being a pro is, man. Like, do you know that I think it's Apollo 13
Mhm,
where
mhm.
he has this like cardboard box and he pours it on the
Yes,
table and he
yes.
basically says like, we have to get them down with the things on this table. Like, anything that's a solution outside of this table is not a solution, it's a dream. That's my life, man. I love that. Like, give me that every day of the week, man. That's the best. Maybe I'm a masochist, but like,
Yeah, I
that's,
think
you know
anybody
what I
that
mean?
chooses this path is
I think it's
pirates.
sick, man, because it's like, it's that's fun, man. That's fun. I mean, like, I remember
Yeah.
seeing, what's my dude that mixed the early Young Thug things? Like, he mixed it from an Uber. Like, he didn't have a car because he was in New York, so he was like, oh, I'm gonna get an Uber and I'm gonna hook my thing up to his aux and just tell him to drive around so I can mix this before it comes out later that day. I mean, that's awesome.
So cool.
That's the best. I
It
mean,
is.
that, you know, yeah, if you can get your craft to that space where that's
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
and not fearful, like,
Right.
that's, you know what I mean? Now
Totally.
we're making music, man. Like,
I
that's the fun stuff.
in another New York City story. So I had no money, like literally
Hell
no
yeah.
money. Yeah, I'm in New York City. I am playing in like a sideman work, playing guitar for
Yeah.
an artist there. I'm in my hotel room that's like I don't know, somewhere on the Upper West Side, and I get a call that I need to record guitar for a commercial that they need by the end of the day. I have my guitar. I don't have an interface. I'm like, there's a Guitar Center. I I go to
Yes.
hit the subway, and I ran out of money for the subway. So I'm like, there's no time. The Guitar Center is gonna close. I hoof it on foot. I miss it. The Guitar Center's closed. There's one in Times Square that's open for another hour. So I'm like running
I
down,
love this.
and I get there, and I'm like, okay, I pay with my credit card. Credit card declined. I'm like, okay, no big deal. I'll go to the bank. I go in, and the bank's closed. I'm like, okay, what do I do? My girlfriend, she's now my wife. she
That's why.
she wired me money
She's
so I
going to
could buy.
heaven.
She's going to heaven. She wired me
She's
money
going
so I
to
could buy the
heaven.
interface. I go to the hotel room. I knock out the guitar. I set it up. But those are the things. That's what you have to do. It's
Yeah, man, it's crazy to me.
goofy.
It's like, it's also ahistorical to think that it's going to be any different,
Right.
Like, I mean, the first cuts I had on a major label record we made in a bedroom, you know what I mean? They ended up selling millions of records, and like, that was cool. Like,
Yeah.
RCA put it out, you know
Wow.
what I mean? Like,
Yes.
but it's also like, to the point, Motown demos, man. That's
Yes.
the vocal.
Yes.
Erykah Badu, who's one of the greatest singers of all time,
Yep.
stands in front of the speakers with no headphones, with the speakers dimed, singing into an SM58.
Mm.
That's what you hear on every one of her vocals, on every one of her records. Like this idea, that's the other thing. Okay, so like let me get a little nerdy
Yeah.
recording thing.
Yeah.
I am on an absolute crusade against vocal booths.
Yes.
Okay. This is
Yes.
like, and I know Dr. Dre doesn't use a vocal booth and Jack Antonoff doesn't use a vocal booth, and I am team them because I think it is absolutely lunacy to tell someone, hey, you're a insecure musician, who wants to be loved by everyone, just like me. You know what I mean? I'm one
Mm-hmm.
of them. Shit.
Yep. Yep.
How about we put you in a hyperbaric chamber and tell you to perform and make magic for people? That is crazy, man. That is crazy. If you really think about it, man, that is lunacy. And so why? So like the engineer doesn't have to isotope RX the thing a little bit or whatever, like just so you get this, man, fuck off, man. No, like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like to me, that's like crazy, man. The job is to capture a performance.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And
I
so
do.
like, yeah, to me, it's like, that's nuts. It's just nuts. It's like, I love the French New Wave film stuff like Godard and
Uh-huh.
Truffaut and all that stuff. Like
Uh-huh.
they were so smart that, Godard was like, okay, we don't have the budgets of these Hollywood films, but I need the camera to move like, from left to right.
Yeah.
Get a grocery cart and move the camera from left to right. It does the job you need it to do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yes.
it's
Yes.
so crazy to me that like
Love
we're
it.
so things that don't get to the speakers. We prioritize the things that don't get to the speakers, man. Like what microphone or what chain or what who cares, man? Is ain't. You know what I mean? Like magic, not magic. Like it's nuts to me, man. Anyway, sorry.
It's good.
My
It's really
vocal booth
good. I
crusade
love
is
it.
you
The
know.
people need to hear it. Speaking of what the people need to hear, so this is my last question. I ask this of
Yeah,
every
bro.
guest. The show is called Love
Shoot.
Music More. The segment's called Love Music Why. I'll keep it simple. Why do you love music?
Music saved my life, man. When I was 10 years old, I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player. Everybody grew, I didn't. And so my father was like, what if we did something that it didn't matter, how fast you were, or whether or not you were the coach's son or whatever. Something a little bit more meritocratic, I guess. And man, music has brought me all over the world. Music has brought me in rooms I never could have dreamed of, man. And so, why do I love music, man? It saved my life, man. It's given me the best friends that I'll ever have. I vividly remember being 14, 15 years old, thinking that I was so weird and strange and from another planet, and then hearing David Bowie's Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and Spiders from Mars and going like, oh, I, and he's in the end on Rock and Roll Suicide, he's singing, you're not alone. Give me your hands. And that feeling of like someone reaching through the speakers and grabbing me, that's what I'm trying to do for the rest of my life. So why do I love music? It saved my life, man.
Beautiful example.
Thank you, brother.
All right, I lied. I've got one more question.
We
800 hertz on a bass guitar.
call it lanyap. We call it lanyap in New Orleans, bro. Lagniappe. Lanyap.
Lanyap.
Little something extra. Little lanyap
Lanyap.
for the people.
800 hertz on a bass guitar.
Yeah.
I couldn't let you
Okay.
just not talk about
Yeah.
that at all.
No, I mean, I think that's, to me, it's like, I think, every instrument has like its little spaces that it's trying to occupy.
Yeah.
Thinking about it in isolation is not necessarily the way to think about it. If you think about usually a bass guitar is in relation to drums, which is in relation to either keys or guitar, right? Usually in a classic 20th century rhythm section sense. And if you think about the frequencies that a kick drum and a snare drum are occupying, usually a kick drum and a snare drum are occupying kick drums, your 60, 80, 100 hertz, snare drums 200 hertz and 1K. And then you got this mid-range stuff right? And the guitars aren't really doing that.
Uh-huh.
Like guitars are living up in that 1K. Yeah, you can beef up guitars, blah, 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 blah. But there's that mid-range, man. That woolly, beautiful mid-range that like nothing sits in that space better than an electric guitar, that 800 hertz, man. Like, and it just, to me, that's what I love that in records. You know, I love mid-range, man. I know like for a long time we were making real smiley records where it was like very big bottom, very high top, scoop mids. Like, man, I love mid-range. Mid-range is like hips on a, you
Mid-range
know,
is
on a
like hips.
beautiful person, man. Like you know, like I need a little ass. I'm Southern, you know what I'm saying? Like, you
I
know?
do know what you're saying. So, where can people find you? And I would definitely want you to make sure that you talk a little bit about here in the Blue Room. I want them to check out your Substack, follow you on socials. Where can people get in touch?
Yes, thank you, man. Yeah, my Instagram's at that John Michael, JohnMichael. And yeah, I just started this Substack kind of starting to spill just some theories and things that I think about and on this website here in theblueroom.com. The Blue Room is my studio. It's kind of a safe space, a creative space. A lot of cool records have been made there. And yeah, I'm just starting to kind of share. I just wanted to make a safe space on the internet. You know, it feels like so many things are just content driven and like algorithmically driven and all these kind of things. I'm trying to just have a journal, you know, kind of it's a little, maybe it's the elder millennial in me, but that kind of bloggy kind of like, okay, video, just
I
having a
love Substack.
conversation with people.
I love it.
And so hopefully, you know, sometimes it gets a little theoretical, but I think it would be of value for music makers. You know, we talk about everything from creativity to making records to mixing records to whatever it may be. I'm doing this one series called An Anatomy of a Song, where I'm kind of breaking apart the things about a song that I think matter. Sort of like, you know, a doctor has a body, I have a song, right? And I got to figure out what makes it sick and what makes it thrive and healthy. And so like how I kind of look at it, just because I've been doing this I'm 40 now, man. I've been a professional in the music industry since I was 15, you know? So like, and to the point of community and mentorship, this is my way of trying to bend the digital world to that, you know, to try to follow in the footsteps of people like Terrence Blanchard for me and other mentors that I've had. You know?
Another link in that chain.
Hell yeah, dude.
Oh, it was a pleasure chatting. Really, really appreciate it.
Scuba, have a blessed one, man. Grateful for you.